So, lots of people, myself included, are admitting to ourselves after the elections that this is who we are. Hey, I may like to think of myself as different from some wave or other that has happened, but am I? And even should I be? Hold that thought. Because I do think the question that has been haunting us is, who are we in our society right now? It's a question every society in history has had to grapple with. Who are we? And there now, for now, has been a loud, irrefutable answer that claims, that shows this. This result right now is who we are. It is the timbre of our times. And that means admitting there is no longer the perceived social contract that previous generations grew up thinking we were operating under, the one that espoused the bespoke golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's not our society's social contract today. Now, I'm not claiming, mind you, that previous generations, including mine, lived up to a golden rule, but it was understood to be the appropriate, the aspirational MO for the people that we are. Now, we don't even have to pretend that it's the appropriate MO. Anyway, I'm weary, and I'm wary, even as I know there are others who feel exactly the opposite of the way I feel. So who are we collectively, this 248 years young nation of people that doesn't have an ethos to treat all others with respect? And who are we? We who gathered this Sunday reading apocalyptic literature. Really lectionary apocalyptic literature in November. But what's actually happening in Mark's gospel at this time? Jesus has just come into Jerusalem days ago amid hosannas. The start of what we call Holy Week. That's the timing that's going on in this gospel. But then Jesus has gone to the temple and he's overturned the tables of the money changers. And as we heard in last week's gospel, he has called out as hypocrites the powers that be with his acknowledgement of the immensity of the widow's meager gift as being the greatest gift. And then in today's gospel, he leaves the temple and he goes out to the Mount of Olives, where they can view this immense golden temple shining in the sun. And he delivers this discourse about the future destruction of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem, and his own coming again at the end of the age. Apocalyptic literature is about what's coming. What's coming? We already know what is. The war and injustice that Jesus names, they were already the world of the Roman Empire. And Mark's gospel is written not this day that we're reading. It's written as Rome is decimating the Jews. Bad things happening to oppressed people is a pretty safe prediction. But what is coming in these birth pangs? Today's apocalyptic readings. We just heard the prophet Daniel's vision about a time of anguish, and the letter to the Hebrews saying, as you see the day approaching. And now this, Mark chapter 13, with Jesus saying disturbing things about scary signs. It's sometimes called the little apocalypse. And then, throughout history, subsequently, how many times have false prophets claimed to know the date of the end of the world, pointing to what is going on in the world as fulfilling those signs that we've read about? Signs of blowhards proclaiming, "I am he," and people led astray, and wars, and nation against nation, and earthquakes, and famines, and worse. Jesus names these things. And now Wikipedia, the ultimate authority in all things, lists 129 end-of-days predictions just since the 18th century. Although several of that robust number are so-called prophets revising the date they gave when they found themselves still here with a few followers. And there are times in our own lives when we individually see signs and when we personally actually live through awful things, things that make us feel like everything is ending. We sometimes may hardly remember or trust what is actually coming. Pain and grief shakes our faith and makes us wonder where God is. And it makes us ask, who are we as Christians? But Christians we are. Here we be together, followers of Jesus Christ. So who we are has got to have a lot to do with who this Jesus is. And I see three things in the world that are fundamental about this Jesus that we follow. Number one, he changed everything. Number two, nothing has changed. Three, he knew that. So what do I mean by that? Jesus changed everything. That's why we're gathered here. He raised up the lowly in a world of oppression that only valued power. He called out the entrenched religious hierarchy and dogmatic legalism that kept people feeling like they were far from the God who loves them. He preached the prodigal son of love that knows no boundaries, the Good Samaritan, of how the one you consider the outsider is your neighbor. The Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the peacemakers. He accepted an excruciating crucifixion for love of all of us. And in doing so, he overcame the powers that be, even the power of death. Jesus changed everything through love. And yet, while Jesus was doing all this, Jesus knew what was going to happen to him on this journey. And he cried in the Garden of Gethsemane for fear of it. But he went forward to enable us, his followers, to change how we operate in the world so that we could change how this world operates. All this, all that Jesus did while he walked among us, this is who Jesus is. He changed everything. And yet he also knew this world, and he knew our resistance. And he straight up said in the gospel that we just read today that nothing is going to change. He knew there would still be imposters proclaiming they were the Lord, still causing harm, still promising that they could make your race, your religion, your wealth the world's priority. And they would lead us to wage war and trample people to do so. Jesus knew, even after all he said and did, that we in every age still face this dark side of our nature, and we would choose to hate and to harm each other. And we would also live through hardships in life that we don't choose: famine, earthquakes, loss. Jesus, fully divine, himself God, was also fully human, and he lived through what we lived through. But in coming among us, Jesus changed everything, and so I have faith, imperfect as it is. And as a Christian, I strive to follow Jesus' way in my own imperfect way. And along the way, I have also at times acted out from that darker side of my nature, as if nothing was changed because of my faith in Jesus. And I have lived through my own famine and earthquake times in my life, mighty hardships that were not of my doing at all, but were part of the journey of being human, the journey that Jesus knew firsthand. And I'm pretty sure you do too. Believing that Jesus has changed everything has been my salvation when all around me, and sometimes within me, it seems as if nothing has changed. That patriarchy and misogyny and racism are always going to be the powers of this earth. And that my own self-righteousness and selfishness are always going to crop up as my own dark shadow. In that reality, my succor comes from my number 3. Jesus knew this. He knew it in his life. He knew it would be our history. He knew it would be my life. He knew it would be your life. That's today's gospel. And he still went through it for me and for you. And he still goes through it with us in every age for the love of us. He's our birth partner in this age, which is every age. If you feel despair in these days, or in any days, remember that Jesus is beside you. Because my numbering of those 3 things, where Jesus changed everything, then nothing changed, and he knew it, it's a circle, and it comes back around to number 1. Jesus changed everything. And he left it to us to be that change in the world. Christians, do we have what it takes to change our own hearts when we need to be the change in the world? Because deep within every single person, each of us is the spark of the divine. And when that spark is ignited, it is so much stronger than society's corrupt attraction to power and domination. And it is so much stronger than the despair of uncertainty and loss that happens in each of our individual lives. When that divine spark of our authentic selves, the true self made in God's image, is ignited by Christ, we do want justice for all. We don't buy into false idols. We don't protect our money more vociferously than we would protect other people's children. We don't say to anyone, "You don't belong here." Now hear me, I'm not just talking about some majority of us making clear that our choice as a nation is a voice of hate and division. I'm also talking about myself as an individual, ourselves, I think, when I find myself judgmental and hypocritical and maybe pig-headed, when I feel like my faith is shaky, when I face personal hardship and deep grief and fear. Jesus changed everything so that my faith could change me. And in changing me, I can change the world. That's my call as a Christian. When Jesus tells his disciples, tells all of us today, look, hard stuff is going to happen, he also tells us what's ultimately coming. And we breeze right over it. What's ultimately coming? He is. So he says, don't panic, don't despair, and don't lose your faith. That seems crazy to say after he's just said the little apocalypse, given a prediction of hardship. But what he really says is that he is. And so love is the end game. Jesus knew, and Jesus told us the world would still be ugly and choose power and privilege over love for a long time to come. And he knew this world was still God's beautiful creation, and we each are God's beloved, his beloved, made in the image of God, never abandoned by the God who loves us. The writer Jan Richardson invites us, in reading this gospel's little apocalypse, to look for the presence of Christ, who enters into our every loss, who comes to us in the midst of devastation, who gathers us up when our world has shattered, and who offers the healing that is a foretaste of the wholeness he is working to bring about, not only at the end of time, but also in this time and this place. I just love that. Yes, this time, in this place, Jesus gathers us up. And so, friends, we do go forward as Christians, and we know what that means. This command to love God above all and to love your neighbor as yourself, which sounds a lot like the Golden Rule. If you're looking at predictions, keep your eye and your heart on Jesus.